If you're going to be in cybersecurity, then you need to understand vulnerability management. So today I'm going to start teaching a whole series. So go ahead and subscribe now because I'm about to walk you through how to do vulnerability management with Tenable. But before we get started, the reason I have access to this console, and this is an MSSP console, which means basically it's the same thing that I use every day at work. I'm going to show you what I do at work, okay? But this is all sponsored courtesy of the company that I work for, Cybersecurity. What makes us different from other companies is there are plenty of companies that will come out there will deploy patches, they will scan for vulnerabilities, but not all vulnerabilities are fixed through patches. And so our company, we actually write scripts using PowerShell, shell script, and whatever is necessary to go out and fix vulnerabilities, and even work with the customer sometimes to do manual like fixes because sometimes you can't script it. So the thing is, Cybertar is very different. We're a unicorn and we do something that's unique in the industry. So anyway, if your company is struggling with vulnerabilities, don't forget to check out Cybertar. Go to the website, sign up for free. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, and they also have a Cybertar YouTube channel. But anyway, back to the video. So because they're so generous and they see what I do on YouTube, let's go ahead and jump into this. So vulnerability management, what is it? Well, vulnerabilities are basically they're flaws in software, right? Or flaws in your build, like your building security, right? Your doors, your house, anything that somebody can exploit to gain access to something that you're trying to protect is considered a vulnerability. So what you have here, this is a console. And so what I did is essentially clicked on the vulnerability management from that main screen. And when I get here, it takes me here. So I can click on the logo to always come back to this page. And so let me break down just some simple concepts because this is going to be just the overview. So with Tenable, you have multiple sources of scanning. So you can deploy an appliance. So I can take an appliance, I can put it on my home network or put it on my company network, and then I can scan that local subnet. If you don't know what subnets are, you need to learn networking. It's very important for cybersecurity. But I can scan my local network and I did vulnerabilities from externals, not on the machine. Or I can deploy an agent and install an agent on the machine, and I can do what's called an agent-based scan, which means allows me to see a lot more because it's actually installed. It can see the software. It's had all the permissions it needs, so it can kind of tell me if the vulnerabilities are there or not. Now with this scan, it's scanning across the network, and I can do what's called a uncredentialed or a credentialed, which means I can give it username and password so it can still scan across the network, but it can use a username and password to be able to get additional information off of the devices it finds. But it also can scan your routers and switches and kind of do host identification and to see what the heck is out there. So there are different scans for different purposes. And then you have what's called the agentless scanner. This scanner is one that's deployed in AWS, Azure, and GCP, but unfortunately the agentless scanner is being removed from this Tenable vulnerability management. And by the way, Tenable does have many products. Today I'm going to be covering Tenable vulnerability management, okay? So you do have this one that can be deployed in your cloud environments, and it allows you to be able to get data from that, okay? So then I also want to talk about this, the vulnerability priority rating. Now, most of you have heard of what's called the CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. Well, the VPR is something that Tenable does. So they say, okay, a vulnerability comes out, they assign it a CVSS value, or the governing body that assigns the values of vulnerabilities, whether it's low, medium, high, critical, right? Tenable then assesses that and says, okay, we're going to take the information y'all gave, and we're going to look at the fact that maybe you need to be on the machine to exploit it. Maybe you got to do it from the BIOS. Maybe it can't be, or it can be exploited across the network. Tenable is going to take all these additional values and it's going to assess it, and they're going to say, okay, well, we're going to assign our own rating on top of that. And so that's the value of buying a product like Tenable, because a lot of times things will come out with a CVSS score that's 10, but Tenable will come back and say it's only a 6 because of the complexity of exploitation. So this is where you get the additional value from Tenable by doing so. So what we're going to focus on today, though, is we're going to look at the agent-based vulnerabilities. Now, on the main interface, if I click here, it's going to take me to the agents, like all of the vulnerabilities, high, mediums, lows, and criticals. If I click here, it's only going to show me the criticals. If I click here, it's going to show me the highs. So I'm going to go ahead and click here so you can kind of see. And this just gives an overview. So these are this is part of the Technology Interpreter Mentorship program. So we have machines in here that we're working on. These are some of the mentees machines, as well as some machines I have in here that we're running vulnerability scans, and you can see immediately you have the asset name, you have the IP addresses. These are all the local IP addresses, right? You have the severity of the vulnerability, the plugin name. Now, here's one thing: Tenable has, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of plugins, basically. So each vulnerability, Tenable assigns a plugin name, a plugin ID. This is a unique identifier. And you can use this basically to identify this vulnerability, because see, Microsoft Silverlight, there could be like 50 Microsoft Silverlight vulnerabilities that each have their own severity ratings. So how do you differentiate between all the multiple vulnerabilities that are out there? Well, that's how you use a plugin ID. Okay, it's not shown here, it's just showing a name. The VPR, you can kind of see, so I can sort by VPR. So it's saying that this is a 9.2, this Mozilla is a 6.7. Got the CVSS version 3. Don't know as much about it. I know that this is, I think, the newest version of the CVSS, but once again, take that with a grain of salt. I have not really dug into the CVSS version 3 score. And then it tells the active state. So you can have multiple states. You can have active, you can have new, you can have resurfaced, and you can have fixed. So if there's a vulnerability and I go out, let's say I remediate this vulnerability, it's going to change the status of the vulnerability to fixed, okay? And that means it should, in theory, hide it, because if you look at my query, and this is what I love about the new interface. By the way, this was just released in the last maybe 2 to 3 months. So I can filter down high, medium, lows, and criticals. But I can also say risk modified. Basically, it's talked about if we want to accept the risk or not. But I can also say the state is equal to active, resurface, surface, new, and I can just put comma and fixed. You see how it popped up on here? The query system has a built-in menu that helps you to be able to build a query. So it's really cool. If I want to add additional parts to the query, I just type add, and it pre-populates lots of the fields. So once again, I love the new interface. I really fought against it in the beginning because I wanted to hold on to the old because I was used to it, but this is really nice. Now, something else to note on this menu, last seen. So it's basically telling me that I scanned for this vulnerability, and the last time that Tenable saw this vulnerability was on 11.1. For this one, 11.15. That's very important, because sometimes, you can scan for vulnerability that exists, but all of a sudden, you do a scan and you see the machine is getting scanned, but you're seeing that the vulnerability last seen date is like a month ago. So maybe Tenable can't get enough information. Maybe the vulnerability is gone, but in theory, if a vulnerability has been remediated, then it should show up as fixed and be hidden from the interface, because we're not showing fixed in this view. Okay, and keep in mind, how do you remediate vulnerabilities? You can deploy patches. Some patches fix vulnerabilities. Some vulnerabilities do not have patches. You have to write scripts. You have to change file permissions, update registry keys, delete files. There are all type of things, and this is what we do at Cybersecurity on a daily basis, which is what makes us different, because companies don't want to do that. It takes a lot of time and effort to fix vulnerabilities. And here's a secret: most companies, I know some big ones, they're not even remediating their vulnerabilities. But you didn't hear that from me, okay? So that's the fact. Lots of big companies are not remediating their vulnerabilities. Kind of crazy, but it's true. I'm telling you. So anyway, that being the case, this is the part of the menu. So let's go ahead and let's look at some other parts here. And of course, leave your questions here if you haven't. Once again, I'll do my best to answer this. So let's talk about scans. So we can configure scans, and I'm not going to go into all of these. So this is why you need to subscribe, because I'm going to do individual videos setting up scans, individual videos on the different vulnerabilities, individual videos on all of this. So I'm going to break this down so that anybody that's interested in cybersecurity can learn vulnerability management. So that's why I'm so happy being able to partner with Cybersecurity to make this happen. This is a big deal, because guess what? You can't just go buy Tenable by yourself. You have to have your own company. You have to get accepted to the partner program to get this kind of interface. There's a lot of things that have to happen. So because of my partnership and the support of my company, I'm able to provide this to you. So please take advantage of this opportunity. Learn it, because this is something that you can use to get a job. If you understand it, whether it's Tenable or even another company's product, once you understand vulnerability management, this can help you to get a job. So what you can see I'm doing is I'm doing a vulnerability scan. Now there's several types of scan, and I explained that in the beginning, the different types, right? I can do a network-based scan, I can do an agent-based scan, I can do a frictionless or cloud-based scan. So these are all the scans that we have set up. And of course you can go in, and I'll show you the details of the scan. I can go in and edit this for you. So targeting the technology interpreters group, You see the schedule. This is once again, we put the agents in a group, and we'll talk about grouping agents and stuff that in details. You can see permission. This is very important. So it just shows whether other administrators can view or see my scan. I can just make it basically no access. So only I know my scan exists. I can make it so others can come in, edit, and also they can even run my scan. And so there are lots of other menus. We can go through some of these settings and stuff like that, some of the more popular ones, but including debugging and stuff like that is very important when it comes to troubleshooting. So that kind of covers the basics of scans. Explore. This is one of the cool views because you can actually go in and see over time the vulnerabilities that have been remediated and stuff like that. So the Explorer view is really, it's a really nice menu, but I don't spend a lot of time working from this because it just kind of shows you over time. And then of course findings, this is kind of takes us back to where we were before. This is where you can run the queries, and you can do it through this query method, but you can also click on advanced and you can do just a regular search without having to really learn the queries. Also, there are multiple types of scans, by the way. There's also, I showed you the scans we have there, but I do need to go back because there's a second scan called the web application scan. I didn't even touch on this. So web application scans allow us to be able to target websites. So it does typically a different type of scan. One is more network based. One is agent based, cloud based. This one is specifically targeted for like websites and stuff like that. So it can kind of test, and it will even go into, like, I've had clients that call me like, yo, like, what's up with this scan? Like, I'm getting all these signups for our blog or something like that, because the Tenable like web application scan is smart enough to actually go to the website and it will log in and stuff like that and test the functionality and test for vulnerabilities as it logs into the forms on your website. So just something to note. So that's a different type of scan. Once again, the findings, this is where we can go in and we can like filter down for all kind of stuff. We can look at it by asset, where it's just the computer names. We can look at it by plugins, which is going to be like your different vulnerabilities. Remember, one plugin for each vulnerability. We also can look at assets. So this is where we go to manage our machines and stuff like that. And you can click on the asset and gives us a lot of information. Let's take one here. Let's take this one right here. So if I click on this, it's going to give us a ton of information, including everything that's installed on this machine. It's not a good example here because typically it'll show you a list of all the applications. I can go see all details. I'm not going to click on that right now because I don't know if it's going to show anything that might be important that I might have to edit out. So trying to save my editing time. And then on top of that, let's see, we got our reports. And honestly, I don't do a lot of reports because we have a lot of stuff that's basically pulled into our what's called our Cybersecurity platform that aggregates this information, but you can go ahead and create custom reports. I'll do a segment on that, but I don't do a lot of Tenable reports, to be honest. So, and then remediation, this is something that they've added as new. Basically, you can create a remediation project plan and kind of plan your remediation, your goals and stuff like that. Don't use this feature as much. I believe it's a fairly new feature that they've added. And then of course the settings, this is where you can go in, and I'll go through this. This is where you can create, this is where you create your sensors, which is going to be your agents and stuff like that. So you can basically go in here, you can create, I'll show us here, like these are all the Tenable agents that we've deployed so far. These are, you can do a nested scanner, which is like the network based one, and it'll show up here. So you can see we got link scanners in here. So we got all kind of stuff we can do. It's just so much that we can do with Tenable. And I'll be going into each section, so don't feel overwhelmed. By the way, access control, this is where we set up user accounts and stuff like that. License, where you manage license. Downloads, this is where I can do single sign-on, log into the Tenable tenant. My account, this is where we can manage it. And I think we can click here, we can go up here also to go to my account, but we can create API keys and stuff like that. And recast, basically, this is where we accept risk. Once again, these are all going to be separate sections. So anyway, I hope this overview, let's see, this is about 14 minutes. So this is a good stopping point. Leave your comments, leave the things that you want to see so I can make sure I take those into account with the series. But anyway, this is Kendrick Technology Interpreters. Thank you so much for watching. And please don't forget to like and subscribe because this series is going to be a very, very good one if you're serious about cybersecurity.